This is a recording made by Jim Walkinshaw and Helen Earley of Robert Huxtable, 2220 Raymond Street, Lansing, Michigan, 48906. Telephone number, area code 517-374-8007 or 9. Bob was born on June 26, 1897. Bob maintains a DPE after his name. This means degrees, personal experience. This recording was made at the Oldsmobile Education and Development Center North at 4000 North Grand River in Lansing on August 11th, 1988. The recording was made in the Oldsmobile History Center.
Street address?
Oh yeah.
But which address do you want? What address do you want us to use?
Well, all my mail comes there.
Okay.
All my mail comes to one place, and
220.
once a week they throw it in a box, and UPS brings it down.
2220 Raymond
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, that's where my office is. That's where they tolerate me.
48912 is that?
No, 374. Oh yeah, 48906. That's the zip code.
And what's your phone number out there?
374-8009. Well, there's two phones in there. It's 8007.
8007 and 9.
Yeah, most of them use 80.
Okay.
Easier to remember.
Yeah, right.
But there's times when both phones are ringing. Yeah, sometimes they're awful busy. They get long distance phones. They got machines out that they have to have service.
Yeah.
And the fellows go out in the Detroit area and all over Michigan. They've got some machines in Oregon, some in New York City, some in Boston. But the service is pretty much confined to Michigan. You got two boys on the road that the machine has a computer on it, and well, I think they got the bugs all out of it, but anything that moves,
Like most new things.
anything that moves
Right.
has to have trouble.
Right.
Somebody, it's like this. State of Michigan with the lottery. I know a chap that he's a mechanical genius, and he traveled all over the United States shooting trouble on lottery machines. He's retired now. He's only 50.
Mm-hmm.
He went with the state when he was right out of high school.
Oh yeah.
She's a smart cookie.
So,
Did you graduate from Michigan State?
Smart.
yeah. Bob?
Mom, did you graduate from Michigan State?
Oh yeah.
And what did you major in?
Well, I was a DAG student, and then I branched off the last 2 years in horticulture.
What year was that you graduated?
1919. I went to school there during the war. Well, the last part of it was during the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was pretty much alone on the campus because there was a lot of dropouts.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have a plaque there in the Union Building, and as I recall, it was 84 fellas that lost their lives in the First World War. Some of them were flyers. I used to walk in the Union Building back in the 30s, and there was this plaque on the wall. I knew every one of them. And when they changed the building over back here 25 years ago, that plaque disappeared. Nobody knows where it is.
Were you born and raised in Lansing, Bob?
Oh, I was born out here on the farm west of Lansing.
West of
Up
Lansing.
at Delta Mills.
Oh yes. Uh-huh.
What year was that?
1897. I'm older than the Oldsmobile.
When's your birthday? Before August 21st?
Oh yeah, my birthday is the 26th of June.
Well, June 26th, so for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember, I can just barely remember my father. He died in 1900. I can just remember my father.
How long
Just a little fellow.
How long did you stay on the farm then?
Oh, I worked on the farm until summers of 1912.
Oh yeah.
in the summer of 13, I came to Lansing, and I got a job as a clerk in the shipping room of a Real Motor Car Company, punching typewriter. And I graduated in 1914, and got a job as a messenger in a bank for $10 a week.
I'll be darned.
I quit that job and went back to Rio, and they gave me a job as clerk in the purchasing department for $12 an hour. Of course, I had a brother down there. He'd come back from the West, and he was down there.
Was he older than you?
Yeah, he was 4 years older than I was. There was 4 of us boys. I was the youngest. We were in a row. They all gone. My sister still lives in Florida. She's younger than I am. She was only 6 months old. No, wait a minute. She was 13 months old when my father died.
What killed him? How did he die?
He had pneumonia.
Oh.
In those days, there was nothing for it to do anything for him. He was only sick 5 days.
Oh,
My father and mother died just 10 years apart to the very day.
Oh, really? Bob, did your mother then raise the 5 of you children by herself?
Yeah, when my father died in 1900, she took us to live with my grandpa.
Was that her father?
No, that was my father's father.
I see.
My father was farming 100 acres out there for my grandfather, because my grandfather came from England, and he was a joiner. We call him carpenters, and he built all the houses out there in that delta out there, and he paid for his farm that way. He came to this country in he came first to Rockport, New York, where my father, the youngest of the family, was born, and he came in the Delta down here, and he paid for that farm by building houses and barns.
Why did he decide to land in this area particularly?
I don't remember. I remember my grandfather outlived my mother too. He passed away in 1911. I used to ride with him in his horse and cart, but I don't remember. I know the farm was paid for when my father passed away, and then the grandfather took us kids and my mother and went over to his place, and we stayed there until 1906. And I went to school. I was 9 years old then. I went to school down in the old schoolhouse down there, and in the meantime, she still owned 64 acres next to where my grandfather's farm was. She went over there and built a little house and took us kids over there. There was 6 of us kids. Then she passed away, and we moved over on the big farm. And then in 1909, and she passed away in 1910. And then I was farmed out to, there were 3 of us kids then, was under 21. And we were farmed out then to other people. Of course, we were lucky. One of my sisters took us in, my kid sister and I. And
well, then after you went, you worked at Rio for a little bit.
I worked at Rio in 1913, and then I went back there in 1914 after I got done with the bank. And worked at Rio for a year.
Okay.
And
then you decided to enroll
Go to
in
college?
LSU?
well, I had a friend out in the country. He was a kid that I knew in high school, and he'd gone to college 1 year, and he said to me one day, "Why don't you go into college?" And I said, "I haven't got any money." And he said, "Well, you could start." And I said, "Well, I got $90." Well, I said, "Why don't you start?" So I started, and I did everything there was to be done out there.
You graduated in 1919, you said?
1919.
You majored in horticulture.
Yeah.
Then what did you do?
I went on the ocean. No, I went down Lawton, the grape belt. Worked for a big New York brokerage firm, and that summer. And they were sales agents for these grape co-ops. They were the sales marketing branch, but they were privately owned. And they sent a man out from New York, was a head man. There was 3, 4 of those fellows on that. And that job, when the grape was over, then we were supposed to be transferred to Florida. And I got a job through the college with a banana trust, United Fruit Company. And I reported to New York City, and I rode the boats for a year. I've been to every port on the Caribbean Sea except Havana. 17 trips. I got good money, and I saved it. First time out, we were college. There was 6 of us fellows. We were troubleshooters on the boat. That's a long story. They was having trouble with the bananas pre-ripening, and we was shooting trouble to find out what was the trouble with it. And there was one of us fellows on every boat, and we reported. We worked for the United Fruit Company, which is a sales organization of the. We worked for the Fruit Dispatch Company, which was a sales organization of the United Fruit Company. The United Fruit Company was the old banana trust, started by a man by the name of Preston, a Boston man. He bought bananas in the States, 1895, in sailboats. But I worked for a Scotsman, a little Scotsman. He was a chemist, and it was interesting. First trip out, I got $150 a month, all the expenses. Wow. I mean, it was a pretty good job. First month I took my money with me, and I lost it all in the poker game. Second month I took half my pay, and I lost that in the poker game. So the third month I took $20 with me, sent the rest back here. And I didn't lose the $20 because I said I had to keep that, so I quit playing poker.
Well, Bob, you said that you were trying to determine what caused the bananas to.
Well, we were running experiments on the various ways of packing the bananas in the boat. That's a long story.
Well, how did you arrive at some degree?
Oh yes, we had instruments that took the temperatures, and we took the percentage of CO2 gas where the bananas ripen, and each hole was sealed off, so we'd know. We took I worked every 4 hours. I worked every 4 hours. After the bullet of bananas, going down did good. I was signed on as a member of the crew. It was interesting work because we unconsciously, in our reports, we were reporting on the engineers, the refrigeration engineers, and some of those fellows lost their jobs after we.
Was that? Did they determine that?
Well, they weren't doing the work right. They were faking. It goes back to the fact that back in those days, the bananas were bought on the boat at atmospheric temperature in the 80s, and they brought them down to 53. Kept them at 53 to bring them up north. And of course the freezing engineer, they brought in a boat with the smallest percentage of ripes. Well, he was top guy, see. Well, if he didn't keep his temperatures at 53, why, something would happen. It'd ripen. And if he didn't check his fans and his temperatures every 4 hours, and he got away from him, well, he'd have some ripe bananas. So instead of him going down and checking his cargo and his temperatures at 53, maybe he got down there and his machinery had gone bad, and he found them at 55. But he'd always put them in the book at 53. See? So the book, the reporter handed in to the boss was perfect. Bananas was trouble. So we weeded out refrigeration engineers who were less than perfect, And first 2-3 trips that we all took, we were enemies. We were hated, see, because we were working for the New York office, and those old seamen were, you know, seamen. But about the fourth trip, then the skipper, he was asking for us boys to be on the boat, because he said, okay, it's your trouble. But we checked the temperatures and the fan speeds and the CO2 every 4 hours, every 8 hours. But it was every 4 hours because we dovetailed ours in between the other engineer. If we found something wrong, we'd go to the engineer and tell him about it. So we worked ourselves out of a job. 3 years was all gone.
Then where did you move on to? Where did you move on to after that?
Well, I came back here and went to work for, went back to Rio in export sales.
How long were you there?
3 years.
Always in the export sales department?
Well, I started in the testing the engine room. And I lasted a couple of weeks, and then they put me upstairs in export sales. But I didn't last there. I lasted there 3 years. Long story.
Did you like that?
I'd rather not talk about it.
Okay.
A fellow walked in one morning and said, the fellow I was working for, he says, you're fired. Clean out your desk. So that was the end of that. Then I went to work for a big construction company. I was a head timekeeper.
What construction company?
Reniger Construction.
Oh.
I was a head timekeeper for about 6 years. 1924 to 1930, I think it was. I had charge of all the timekeeping, and made out all the paychecks, balanced the books.
Bob, then you moved from Reniger to where? What did you do next?
Well, then I went to work for Weisinger Paper Company. It was a wholesale paper jobber's house in 1929, just before the break, just before the bust. This fellow formed a new company, and it was all, stockholders were all people that I knew at that time, and I was the first man to be hired.
You was a salesman, you said.
It all goes back to the fact that, maybe I shouldn't say that, I was, at that particular time, I was a night templar. I'd gone up in the masonry. I joined the Masons the day I was 21 years old. In fact, I got a 70-year pen coming next week sometime. And then all these boys that I worked for, the Renigers, were all night templars, and I stayed with them until then. The fellow that started the paper company was a friend of mine, Night Templar, and he started the paper company, and I went to work as a salesman. Then the Depression came on, and bingo, everything went pot, see.
Then were you out of a job then?
No, I stayed on. I had a little Chevrolet car, and I traveled Charlotte, Grand Ledge, and all half of Lansing. And
when did you go in business for yourself?
Well, in 1932, I had a sister had a farm out here, and she was making little maple syrup, and she wanted some labels for her cans. So I got an artist, and we made a little label. And so I started that little business on the side on Saturdays and Sundays. And once in a while I'd drop in. I had an old uncle that used to keep the shop for me.
Oh.
And he was retired. And if somebody called, wanted some things, why, he'd take care of them, and I would see him at night. We started from scratch.
Now, was that always on the same location?
Well, no, I started in the Farm Bureau. That's the reason I got into the Farm Bureau. I started in the Farm Bureau building over on East Shiawassee Street. And then I run in the little building next to the Farm Bureau on North Cedar. And that Farm Bureau there was in the old National Car building. And I was selling paper, and of course this man who was with me in college was the head of the print shop in the publicity of Farm Bureau. And that was, naturally, I got all the business there. But that wasn't through friendship. He was a good friend of mine. He went through school. He's gone now. So I knew that, but I had a little building next to it called, it was a fellow was a pattern maker and inventor. He built the first steamboat that was on Grand River up here. He had a little pattern shop there. His name was, well, his brother has got a building on South Washington Avenue, and the name's on the building. And he was an old bachelor, and he lived upstairs. And he was good to me, so I rented the front room. And in fact, he passed away up there. But then they tore the building down. And then I moved out of there, and when did I go? The sideline, that was always a thorn in the flesh of my boss. He didn't like
You
the fact.
in your sugar bush supply business?
Yeah, I made that name up. He always was kind of jealous because he didn't like us fellas to make too much money because we couldn't get away with it. That's a long story too. I could tell you things there and I hadn't better stuff.
Well, when then you left the Weisinger Paper Company?
Well, no, I worked for him until the boss died, and then he died of cancer. And
When was
the
that?
fellow that he put in, he didn't agree with me, and he threw me out one day. And
When was that?
that was in 1953, I think it was. And then I went to work for a paper company in Grand Rapids for about a year, and they put the change in money on the Temple steps, and we agreed or disagreed. And meantime, my business was growing, and so I started in '49. It's all my time to my business. When I ended up in '76, I had the largest and most successful wholesale house in the state, in the world.
Now that was
Maple syrup equipment.
maple syrup equipment.
Supplies and equipment.
And you didn't sell syrup too?
Well, I used to handle some, but the equipment was, I was all alone. And the company now is out on Oakland Road. He does very well with it.
Is that where you ended up, Bob, on Okemos Road, or?
Well, that's where my company ended up.
But when you were running it, where
No,
was
I ended up, I sold it out on West Saginaw Street.
it? It was on West Saginaw. Where about?
4107, right? Second one next to west of Dexter Hardware.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was the first one that went out there.
Okay.
I paid $950 for 100 feet. In '49, I put an old building on it. In 1976, I sold it for $65,000.
What was the road? What was Saginaw Street like then?
Well, it was just a dirt road.
A dirt road.
Well, it was two-line cement. When I used to drive a horse and buggy back in 1910, 11, and 12, that was just a dirt road.
Where did the pavement end on Saginaw then?
Well, they paved it to Grand Ledge first.
Well, when was that? When was that?
It must have been somewhere in the 20s, because that was one of the first roads between Lansing and Charlotte was a two-line pavement. That was in they put that in about 1920, and the Grand Ledge Road was after that.
And that was a two-lane paved highway from, a two-lane paved highway
Oh,
from
yeah,
Lansing
just
to
two lanes.
Grand Ledge. Well, Bob, prior to that, where did the paving end in Lansing? Where did the paving end in Lansing?
Oh.
Can you remember what?
Well,
Was
it's
it as far out?
extension of Saginaw Street.
Wait,
See, that's
well,
it.
yes, but I mean, where was it? As far out as
Like at the railroad
Waverly?
track? Did it quit at the railroad?
Oh, in Lansing, the pavement ended somewhere's out there where the St. Lawrence Hospital is now.
Oh.
There used to be a watering trough there at the end of the pavement. We used to water the horse there. It's all changed.
And then it was just an old dirt road all the way to Grand Ledge.
It was dirty too long. I remember one winter, the Oldsmobile people always tested their cars before the chassis.
Yeah.
They put the two seats on them, and they'd run around out the country. And they used to drive out Saginaw Street. And I remember one morning, we was driving east on Saginaw Street, and here's a couple of these testers coming west. And of course, I think we was driving a cutter, which is narrow, but they were way out here like this, see, and they were throwing the dirt and everything out like that, and we got away from them. About 15, 20 years ago, Helen, we was having a meet down on down central Michigan, in the city, down Washington Avenue. And an elderly gentleman came up to me and we got to talking, and I told him that story about these testers. And he looked at me funny, and he looked at me and he says, listen, he says, you know what, my job over at the Olds, he said, was to clean up those cars after those drivers, he said, got them all dirty. I got his name, and he retired from the Olds. This was way back in the 60s. Of course, he's gone now, but I had his name. I was going to suggest that he be honorary member of the club, but somehow. But he said, well, it was my job. That was the first job I had at Olds. It was clean those dumb cars up. He said, boy, did they get dirty.
Well, Bob, when did you first become interested in automobiles?
Well, when my mother moved over on the farm and built this little house for us kids, 1906, she had a cousin who was a neighborhood thrasher. And he lost his wife, and he'd living with his daughter. We call him, it was Uncle Charlie Moser. And he had the first little Curved Dash Olds in the neighborhood. And he lived around the corner, and of course, if we wanted to use the telephone, we had to go over to Uncle Charlie's. He lived with his daughter on a little farm over there. And about 1908, he bought this little one-cylinder Olds, and I think it was a 1904. And in the summertime, he came over to my mother's, because my mother was a widow woman, and he'd take her to the cinema. She'd ride with him, they'd come to Lansing to the movies after dark. He'd start out before dark, but when he got home, it was dark. And he had a little dicky seat on the back. And he'd take my kid sister, because we were all alone then with my mother because the rest of the family had gone away. My older brothers were working. We used to work for $10 a month on the farms. And my sisters used to work for $2.50 a week on the farms, in the kitchen. But anyway, Uncle Charlie would put my sister and myself on this little dicky seat and take us up to the neighbors. And we stayed there until they came home, see. Of course, it would be probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I can remember him, the house was still out there. The house was back from the road, and I remember him I'd hear that bang, bang, bang coming into the driveway, and there was little lights on that. And we'd be sleeping on the couch. Aunt Emma, we called her Aunt Emma. She lived there, and she took us kids. That was babysitting. But anyway, then Uncle Charlie'd come in and pick up my sister Ruth and put her in his arms, and he'd carry her out and put her on the seat because she was sleeping. And I'd walk out, and then he'd sit there on the seat. He'd put Ruthie on the seat, and he'd say, "Now, Bobby," he says, "you hold on to Ruthie. She isn't awake yet, and she'll fall off that seat." Mm-hmm. So I held on to Ruthie and went down, and he'd take us home. I can remember him going out and picking up Ruthie. See, she was only about 8 years old then. Well, 8 or, that was about 1907, 1908. But anyway, that's the first time I ever rode.
How did he see where he was going at night?
Well, there wasn't anybody on the road at that time.
So it didn't really
make a difference.
Uh-huh.
He just followed the ruts down Lansing. Yeah. I think he took my mother 3-4 times that summer.
Uh-huh.
And he afterwards had a 2-cylinder reel. I've got a picture of it. And his daughter and his grandchildren on the farm there. He was a thrasherman. He passed away when I was in college. His grandchildren, his 2 granddaughters are still alive. One's in Florida and one's down in Indiana. But anyway...
You didn't see very many cars then that time.
No. When we was in school over there at Delta Mills, the schoolhouse was up on a bank. Uh-huh. And the recess, you had recess between morning and noon, 15-minute recess. And we'd hear a car coming down the road. We'd run down the bank, stand right there by the road when they went by. Maybe once a week somebody
Oh,
would
my
buy it.
goodness.
Oh, that was, no one else in the neighborhood that had any cars. It was Uncle Charlie, let's see, I went to high school, 1910.
So how did you get to school all that? Walk?
Well, in the country school,
Yeah.
we walked over to Delta. That's about a mile and a half over.
Uh-huh.
Well, once in a while when it was snowing, they'd come and get you, but pick you up and bring you home. And you walked. I had a dinner pail, and I had a slice of bread and some jelly and an apple.
Mm-hmm.
And
Where did you get groceries in those days?
well, Delta Mills had a little store over
At
there.
those store. Huh?
Then in 1910, well, the store was still there, but we used to come to Lansing with a horse and buggy.
Well, how often would you do that?
Oh, I don't remember now. I know I came, being the youngest of the three brothers, and through necessity, I wore out their clothes. My mother made them over for me.
Sure.
And the only thing I ever had new was my shoes. And my mother would always bring me to Lansing. There was one trip in the summertime and get me a pair of shoes so I'd go back to school that fall. I remember she went into the store, I remember just what it was yesterday. And Bob Woodworth was the shoe store then. Bob was the youngest man, and he was a clerk. And I remember he got some shoes, put them on my feet, and he said to my mother, "There'll be $2. And she fainted away because she never paid over $1.50 for my shoes. And 50 cents was all I'm
Oh, yeah.
Back in those days, if I had a penny to spend for candy, it's a store I was lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Because the old storeman always used to give us kids 2 pieces of candy for a penny, which we always... I used to go to the store, I had a little cart, and I'd take the eggs over there and swap them for some sugar and some flour and a can of kerosene.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be careful to keep the kerosene in the back of the little cart, keep it away from the food.
Yeah. So it didn't slobber on it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of bartering then.
Well, I
trading.
traded the eggs for everybody else because you didn't have any money.
Yeah.
No, we got through with my mother, but she died of appendicitis in 1910. She was only sick 5 days.
Oh, goodness.
She was only, in 1910, she was only, I think she was only 45 or 50.
When you were out to the college, Bob, did you see any cars or those kinds of things?
Yeah,
at
there
that
was,
time frame?
during the war. One of the fellows down the street, he belonged to another fraternity, and he had a car, he had a Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
And he was Jimmy Rasbeck. He was a smart fellow. He was smart. He married the best looking gal on the campus. And I lost track of Jimmy afterwards. He belonged to the Olympics. And I was living in the Noman house up the street. And afterwards went into Sigma Nu. And Jimmy had a Super 6 Hudson. He came from some very, very nice family in Detroit. That's the only car that I ever knew that anybody ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, one of the profs on the campus would have a car.
How did you get around that?
At the campus?
Yeah.
You walked.
I'll walk.
Oh, you're damn right you walked.
How did you get into, did you come into Lansing at all?
Well, a streetcar came down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you'd come to Lansing. Yeah, I worked my way through school. I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
The last year or so, I borrowed money and then we paid it back. I used to work for one summer I worked for 15 cents an hour on the campus.
What were you doing there, out on the campus?
That time, 15 cents?
Yeah.
I ran an experimental power lawnmower one summer for the band that had charge of the campus.
What kind of a lawnmower was it?
Well, it was just a hand mower with a little engine down in front and then a loose belt, had 1 speed. Old Tommy Gunson was he was the caretaker of the campus. He was an old Scotsman and he was a brilliant very fine old gentleman. And at that time to cut the grass on the campus with a one horse mower. It had 3 sections. The man rode up here, and then he had one horse out in front. Of course, he couldn't get up next to the trees. So I had a hand mower, and I was take everything around that the big mowers didn't do. Pick up the leaves and the chips and what the horse didn't left there too, and had a couple bushel baskets. And he came out one day and he said, "I got a power mower. Why don't you use this?" So I used it for a week or so, but it only had 1 speed. It was pretty fast. And one day it got away from me and I run right into a big oak tree. And at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I remember just what it was yesterday. So I said, "Oh, here goes my job." So I walked toward the greenhouse, which was the tree was quite close to the greenhouse. It's gone now. And I walked in the back in the greenhouse, and Tommy Gunson was standing there. He was working, I guess, in the greenhouse. He had charged the greenhouse. And I walked in the back door, and he looked up at me and he said, "Now, what happened to you?" And I said, "Mr. Gunson, I broke the mower." I was trembling like that. See? Well, they said, "What's wrong with the mower?" Well, I said, "It's geared up too fast." You know, he said, "I've been watching you." He said, "You bring it over here." He said, "I'll call up the Ideal Power Lawnmower down in Lansing, tell them to come get that." He said, "That's an experimental mower." And he said, "You go get your hand mower and go back to work." Gee, I still had my job.
Is that the first time you saw a power lawnmower?
That's the first time. I think that's the first time I ever had one on the campus. That same summer, I went over to the military department, and the fellow was a United States Army man, in charge of the students there. We all had to. Those that chose, we drilled 1 hour 3 times a week, and they paid us $8 a month, and we got a uniform. And we wear those uniforms because the government was giving them. So I went over to old Sergeant Cross, and he was sitting on the old post office building, and I said, "Sergeant, I got to have a job." And he got a job. He said, "Yeah, I got a job for you." He said, "To pay you 15 cents an hour." He said, "I want you to clean guns." And I said, "Okay, I'll take it." So he said, "Here's a screwdriver. You go to the armory, and there's a bunch of boxes over there, about 6-8 feet long, and you get tops all screwed on them." And he said, "I want you to take those guns all out and clean them." So I took the screwdriver, went over, and I took the top off from 2 or 3 boxes, and I looked down and took the rifles out. They were the rifles that we practiced with, the students. And they were all clean. I couldn't do anything to it. I said, "There's something wrong here." So I went back over to Sergeant Cross, and I walked in the room, and I said, "Sergeant Cross," I said, those guns are clean. They don't need cleaning." And he looked up at me, and he said, "Sonny," he said, "I told you to clean the guns." I said, "Yes, sir." I walked out. I went back to the armory, and I took every gun out of every box. He gave me some claws and wiped it all off. A couple of weeks later, I went back over to the office, and I said, "I've got finished the job." He said, "That's fine. I finished the job." He said, "I want you to sign this paper." And I said, "I'll tell you what happened." He said, "I had $50 left in my budget over to the accounting office, and I had to spend it by the 1st of September or I would lose it." And he said, "You got most of that $50. I took the slip over to the accounting office, and they paid me cash. I was a guard at his funeral, at his casket. I used to carry mail on the campus. That was the best job there was.
The kind of a mail working for the post office?
Yeah, we picked up the mail over to the office, the secretary's office, and I'd take it to the dormitories because they had the numbers on. We got so much a week for paying for that. We worked for the secretary. And that was when I was a junior and senior. Of course, when you was a freshman, you didn't get a very good job. But there was nothing out there that I didn't do. I used to represent a firm in Chicago. And a man come along, and he sold party programs. Everyone, we had to dance on the campus. We had a little program, and we changed dances. And And I was his representative, and I'd get so much money for every one of those deals that we worked on.
Hey, Bob, let me ask you something. How many cars do you own now, and what are they?
Today,
Yes.
I got a 1980 two-door Delta out here with a experimental wheelchair in it.
Yes, you were
I own the
showing
patent that come out of New Zealand.
Is that your own patent?
No, that's the Lynn Southwest patent.
Well, then you've got your 1980.
That's my 1980 two-door, yeah. It's got 48,000 miles in
It's
it.
a Delta.
That's the one I'm going to send to California.
What other ones do you
I got
own?
a 77 big wagon Vista Cruiser that I bought from a friend who... I used to buy all my cars over from the experimental engineering department. You know, I had 4,000 miles on them over
Oh,
there.
yes.
That's a long story. Perhaps I haven't gone into detail with that, but that's probably best not to put that on record. But I had a certain car come down, and a certain engineer would drive it to 4,000 miles, and then when I had 4,000 miles, he'd say, Bob, the car's over there. So I had a friend here that wanted to get a car, so I called up with him. There was 277 wagons in engineering. See a certain man, he said he'd take you out and show them to him. So he went out and showed them. Each one had 4,000 miles on, one had 4,300 miles on. One had a dent in the back. So they were engineered cars. That was back in 1960, back to 77, 76, 77. And I said, well, this fellow was a very personal friend of mine. He said, I'll take that one. So you brought those two to the dealers. It went through the dealers, and that car went through this fellow down in little town Springfield, Ohio, the Amish fellow. You know him.
Oh, Rush Yoder?
Russ Roder. Yeah, I called Russ up. I said, Russ, we've got one car over. He said, okay. He said, Bob, I'll call him up and tell him to release it to him. And he said, no, I'll call you back and tell him how much money it is. So that friend of mine took that car and drove it back to Tucson 3-4 years and had 3,300 miles on it. He passed away with a heart attack. So I got his car and I got his trailer down there. Very, very close friend of mine.
Now you've got a 77?
77 wagon. That's got 120,000 miles on it.
What's your other cars?
Well, I got this 1904.
1904, and that's a Curved Dash that you want to sell for 20,000.
Well, I told a fellow in England yesterday that I would consider $20,000, and I said I reserve the. He called me on the phone. I reserve the right to back out of it. So yesterday, that was 2 days ago. Yesterday, I got a letter from a friend of mine down in Illinois. He says, I want that car. So I wrote him a letter, and I bumped the price up because he was going to get the trailer. And I told him, I said, I don't care whether you take your car or not, because I said, it'll break my heart when it goes anyway. But the kids don't want it, and you can't use it. I got a 29 Huxtable Roadster.
1929 Huxtable.
6-cylinder Roadster with 6-wire wheels, what we call deluxe. I bought it in San Antonio, Texas in 1968.
When did you get the Curved Dash?
Well, a fellow walked in my shop in 1968 from Akron, Ohio, and he said, Bob, he said, I got 2 basket cases, Curved Dash Oldsmobile, 1904s. And he said I was going to put them together, but he said I changed my plans, and they're for sale. And I said, well, what do you got? And he told me what he had, and I said, how much you want for them? He said, $1,250. And I said, okay, bring them in. So we brought them in the next week, dumped them in the warehouse. We had axles and engines and some springs, and that's about all. Meantime, Bill Gephardt had was my neighbor in Westmoreland, and he'd become a friend of mine. So I said to Bill, you put the 2 cars together, I'll furnish everything, I'll get one car and you get one car. So Bill put those 2 cars together, and I got my Curved Dash Oldsmobile in 78, and Bill got his in 79. And of course he made some mistakes because we had to rebuild. I've added to it. I've got Frank Smith's pressure oil around mine, and I've got my own carburetor, which I bring out from Australia. It's a duplicate of the 1904 carburetor. That's another story. I've got carburetors in South Africa, Italy, Norway, Sweden, Isle of Man, England, practically every state in the Union. I've got three carburetors on 3 curved dash Oldsmobiles in Australia. I think I've got one in New Zealand, several in Florida. In fact, I've got a back order on it right now. That's another story. Frank Smith was a collector in England. He had 2 curved dashes. He's got carburetors on both of them. And there's another chap in South Africa. His car's got one on. Frank Smith used to come to Hershey to the meets. And he passed away 3 or 4 years ago. Wonderful fellow.
Bob, are you a distributor for this special carburetor?
No, that's my hobby business. I send, well, that's a long story. I got acquainted with a top mechanic in Maryborough, Queensland, by the name of Peter Olds, through Antiques. And that was back in, about 74. And I sent him a carburetor, and he said, I'll duplicate it, and with some refinements. So I order 10 carburetors at a time. And I've got back orders right now.
How does he spell his last name?
Peter, Olds.
I thought
He was in Lansing 4 or 5 years ago, and he went up to see
Mr. Anderson?
Olds Anderson.
Oh, he
They
did?
traced their ancestry back in Scotland.
Oh, I didn't realize
Way back.
there was a connection.
Way back, yeah.
So they are related.
Well, they think they are.
To some
They
point back
either
there.
one of them didn't pursue it.
I see.
I haven't seen Olds in a couple of years, and Dick Blakely invented it, but Olds put it in production. He's got over 800 beds in one state in Australia. He's got a bed that's just out of this world. It's so simple. The health industry here, well, I'd better not say anything about it because it's a problem. Break in. But if you got somebody that's a terminal illness in your home and you're going to take care of them yourself, we got the answer. And yet, I've beds on test now in northern Minnesota. In fact, I'm due up there, the tour up there. I'm trying to get out of that tour. You know what happened to that tour? Gary Hoosman, you know what he did?
No.
He called up Bill Gephardt and he said, listen, we're going to send a driver down. We're going to drive Bob back with his Curved Dash Olds. He's going to go on the tour. When the tour's over, we're going to drive him back to Lansing. We're going to fly this fellow back twice. So I wrote Gary and I said, Gary, I can't stand it. I said, I've got to check. Don't send him down. I'm expecting a letter today and Gary's going to say, we've already hired him. And I'm going to say, I'd rather not.
I'm kind of glad that you're telling me this, Bob, because I'm not going to be able to get up to Minnesota like I thought.
You aren't
and
going to?
I know you had planned to ride back
Well,
with us
that's okay.
after our
There's
invitation.
3 or 4 planes coming back.
Well, yes.
I got a Visa card.
Well, when is Gary going to send this man down for you?
I'm going to have an argument with Gary because he's planned this whole thing, see? And I'm going to back out on it. I'm going to fly up there and fly back.
So where are you staying while you're up there?
I don't know, wherever they tell me.
I
Neighborhood motel or somewhere, maybe. I don't care. I may not even go yet. I think I'm going to go because I've got that business call up there in Rochester.
Now that's where one of your...
Well, the bed's on test up there.
I see.
The car, the wheelchair that you were talking about?
No, that's a different deal.
No, that's it, but I was curious about that device.
Wheelchair's out in the...
Yeah, the wheelchair in the car.
It's out in 1980 out there. It was 1980 out there now.
Is that a thing who developed that?
Self-made inventor and millionaire in New Zealand.
Okay.
He made one for his friend. Lynn Southworth has the largest and most complete antique automobile museum in the Southern Hemisphere. Self-made man. And in New Zealand, He's been knighted by the British English government, he and his wife. He's lady and surname. He has one of the 1896 Benz cars, and then in the 100th anniversary of the Mercedes-Benz, they flew him back to the factory with his car, he and his wife, as a guest of the Mercedes people. And I met him I've been to Australia 7 times. I've been on tours in New Zealand 5 or 6 times. In fact, I've already registered for 1992, but that's so much. But he made this wheelchair, improved on his first one, and sent it up to me and said, "Bob, it's yours. See if you can put it across there." I dealt with General Motors new devices for 18 months down here in Detroit. I have a card that I can go anywhere in General Motors and show them this, but we didn't get anywhere with it. They call it the aftermarket. In fact, I got behind on it. In the meantime, an Englishman, he designed one, and that's being sold in the country. But that's my problem.
See, Bob, back to Curved Dashes. Have you done a significant amount of looking at early Curved Dash time frames and understand perhaps when cars were made and what was made where? You done much of that?
No, because Bill Gephardt restored the cars. He restored his car and mine at the same time.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay attention to it.
Okay.
Gary Husband, and who's that other fellow up there? Roy Bernick.
Yeah.
He's an excellent mechanic. He comes from a very successful company, and he can do anything he wants to. So, in fact, I have 2 carburetors short on him right now. He wants to put them in stock. He won't do any work outside, but he's his company has, what is it, 400 trucks on the road.
What type of company is he?
Well, he's a distributor, one of the soft drinks and 1 or 2 of the big distributors in probably 8 counties up there. Waldo, very successful company.
Well, then he must have this side business where he needs operators from
you know, maybe he's just playing with it, I don't know. Roy's a very fine chap. He came across the country and all these 3 fellows.
Right.
He's a little, he's different. Dare to be different. I rode with him. I went down to Fort Wayne Road and lived with him back up
Oh,
there.
did you?
Very fine chap. He's a little different than the rest of the boys, but then that's okay. I'm different too.
Bob, do you have any opinion on whether the volumes, the numbers of cars that were made that are advertised are right, wrong, or indifferent?
Well, I saw the Curved Dash Olds this summer advertised for 32,000.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the numbers of cars that were made back like in 1901.
Well, they started out, I think they made 400 in first, and
right.
In 1904 they made 4,500, and in 1905 they made 5,500.
You think those are right or wrong?
I have no way of knowing that. I can't tell you that. Gary is... They came to me way back in the 60s and wanted me to start a Curved Dash Old club when I was still in business, and I didn't have time to do it, and I shrugged it off, and Gary picked it up there. He's done an excellent job, although he has his own electronic business today, and I think that sometimes I think he's spending too much money or too much time on Curved Dash Olds. I get the impression that business is first, and it is quite of a responsibility. He's got members all over the world, and the other fellow helps him. See, Gary used to work for another big electronic firm up there, and he traveled to Southwest, and every time he'd come to Tucson, he'd stop. That was before he went into business for himself, so I got very well acquainted with him down in Tucson. He'd stop off for a couple of hours. Right, had a couple of customers. But no, I have that reproduction of that 7 book, you know. I have the original book. I understand there's another one out. It has one more page in it. They're for sale down there at the museum. I put them through when I was still in Douglas. They've never found a 1906 yet. But I'll look back and see the ones that I passed up. I was on a tour in Southern California in May before I came back this time out to east of San Diego, 1 2-cylinder cars, and there was 7 or 8 curved dashes there. No, 3 curved dashes and 4 others of the M car. That's the with the tonneau on the back.
Yep.
And that's with the bigger engine. And boy, those boys, they were all owned in San Diego. And those fellows that owned those cars, boy, those are good cars. They can put a couple of people in the back and go down there. There's a longer wheelbase, and the engine is set different, a more powerful engine. And those are nice automobiles. I think there's one of them down at the museum. Rush Rotor, but it has got a tonneau on it.
Yeah, that's right, it does not. Well, no, there's a Rio and an Olds down there. It's a 1906, is that?
What?
The one down at the museum is Rush Rotor's old car.
Well, he bought it in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And Russ told me about the history of it. I think it needs a little attention, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the tonneau on the back.
Right. Just has a box like.
But those boys out there on the tour, there was 3 or 4 of those. I didn't get a chance to ride with them because they had other people. But they said they were. Well, there's one of them owned right there in Santa Barbara. Ex-General Motors man, Cliff Sponsell, up on the hill. Very good friend of mine. He's got one of the first auto cars. And he's got quite a collection up there. He's a tremendous mechanic. He's a General Motors mechanic, or he had one of the General Motors plants down in New York State. Very fine chap, and very knowledgeable guy. Very knowledgeable.
Bob, go back to the farm for a minute, will you? Go back to the farm with us again. How did you get water?
Where, on the farm?
On the farm.
Oh, we had a well.
Hand pump?
Yeah, I had a hand pump.
Did you ever get to a point where you had a gas engine running anything?
Yeah. In the 20s, you see, my older brother took the farm over, and during the war, worked in this plants down here, and my mother's old farm, and lived in my mother's old home. He'd come back from the West about 1915, and was a part-time farmer. And got a little putt-putt engine.
Was it an Olds engine?
I don't remember. On my uncle's farm out this side of Williamston, he had a big farm out there. See, my mother was a Turner. I traced my mother's ancestry back to the Mayflower. There's only one descendant, ancestors I can't prove. So we can prove that, I can be a member of the Mayflower descendants. My daughter, that's my mother. And my grandfather came to this country from England. And about 4 or 5 years ago, my daughter went back, and she went to Common, and she came back through Barnstable. And she took a picture of the church where my grandfather went to church and where he was married before he came to this country. And she has a picture there of a marker, a slab about 18 inches wide and about 5 feet high, sticking out of the ground. So everyone back in those days was buried in the churchyard, cemetery right next to the church. And that's got Huxtable on it, and it's got 1717. It goes back to Cornwall's time. So I still have some distant relatives and farmers in England.
Do you
I was supposed to go back and see them. If they're second cousins, I don't know if I'll ever get to See, the name came from people who were hucksters, who were vegetable growers to the nobility. They claim that's how the name originated. I was coming out of Adelaide, Australia, it's been one of my trips. I ran across some, that's another story. I was coming out of Adelaide, north to the little town out there about 10 miles. And one fellow I was riding with, he said, Bob, he said, watch down the road, he said, I'm going to show you something. And down he stopped the car, and up here was the name on the street, Huxtable. See? Well, anyway, that family, my grandfather had 6 brothers. One of them went to Australia, I never heard from him. And so when I went to Australia in '68, I started to see if I could find him. And I kept writing back then, and one of my trips in the '70s, I found a fellow wrote me, and he said, without a doubt, he said, your grandfather and my grandfather, he said, my grandfather is your long lost brother. Because he said, I went to the archives, and he said when those people came to Australia back then, they had a complete family history. And it's all on file. And he said, I traced it back, and he said, my grandfather was your grandfather's brother. And so I looked those fellows, there was 4 of those men left down there. That was about 1970, 72. But they were in their 70s, all retired. And I think they've all passed. Well, one of them, I know one of them's gone. One of them was worked for Gulfall. He was the top man with Gulfall in Adelaide. Adelaide is a cultural city in South Africa, in South Australia. I've lost track of them. One was an engineer, and his wife and his boy is still alive, and I still write them. Peter Rose took me out of. I couldn't find anybody in Huxtable and Maryborough, but Peter says I'm still looking.
Well, you mentioned that your mother was a Turner.
That's right.
Is that any relation to the Turner associated with the Turner
yes,
Dodge?
my mother was a Jim Turner's niece, or twice over. The Turners were railroad people here, you know. The old woman of the railroad people. Turner Street down here was named there. My mother was, I can go over here on Willow Street right now, and the house my mother was born in is right over here on Willow Street, just west of Logan. It's an old house up there, and it's still there. I should go and take a picture of it.
Oh, but, yes.
That was where my mother was born. But she was out to Williamston, was a school teacher in country schools. But the Turners, that family, he was a big farmer out there. My Uncle John was a big farmer out there. He had a little engine, and that was a little Olds engine. He pumped water with it. He had a well house out back there. I used to go out there in 1910, 11, and 12, spend a week out there on the farm. And Uncle John, on Sundays, there was a big hill just east of the Red Cedar River, and the sand at the bottom, and the cars would get stuck down there. And he'd had 2 teams and a hired man, and in the barn, and they'd come up and want him to pull the cars up the top of the hill, because the house would be up there. And remember, he'd take the team down there and haul them up there, and they'd pay him $1. And a hired man, and some Sundays, that was just right in the middle, 2 Sundays that I was there. He'd make $5, $6 on a Sunday afternoon, see. That was quite a lot of money back in 1910. Well, it could have been 1909. His mother was still alive when I went out there. 1908, 1910, 1911.
Did folks have electricity in those times?
No. Electricity came out to the farm up at my old place where my brother lived down on West Willow in the 20s, November.
What did you use for light?
Oh, I just kerosene lamps.
Candles? Anybody use candles?
No, we never had any candles. No. Only candles I ever saw was on the Christmas tree. And I had to watch them.
Well, you probably had those old-fashioned lamps that had the mantle, the white, the little
I don't remember,
white wicks
Helen.
that you weren't
I don't
supposed to
remember,
touch
right.
or they would
Those would be
disintegrate.
I
gas.
can remember.
No, these were
Kerosene lamps with a mantle?
Yeah, that was the main thing, was to get to the grocery store was a little can of kerosene, because that was what you had. Of course, in the wintertime, I had one of these old, great big hard coal stoves.
Pot-bellied stove?
No, it was a hard coal with isinglass around it.
Oh,
And that,
oh yeah.
and that set in the middle of the you had this chestnut hard coal, and the fire never went out.
That was the only heat in the whole house.
Well, it's the only heat we had.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, didn't you have a cook stove in the kitchen?
Yeah, Mother had a cook stove, and we burnt. I helped saw off the rails, fences, and lights like that, and had a cook stove, and another boiler on the end there where you heated the water. And
How did everybody take a bath?
well, you want to hear that story?
Sure.
Okay. I can remember in 1907 or 6 when my mother first moved over there. My kid sister. And let me tell you something. On Saturday night we took a bath. See, and Mother would heat the water on the stove, and we had a galvanized tub. And she put it in the middle of the kitchen floor, and she'd put my kid sister in that tub, and she'd scrub us that Saturday night, because we had to be clean when we went to Sunday school the next day. We went to Sunday school in the morning, and church at night. Walked over to the village. The church is still over there. But anyway, I can remember my kid sister and I sitting there in that tub, and my mother washing my back and washing. Because we had to have that bath. It was Saturday night. Don't kid yourself. My sister's still alive in Florida, in very poor health. Very poor health.
Bob, did your mother make her own soap?
I don't remember Mother ever making soap. No, she might have, but I don't remember. I don't think so.
That she baked her own bread?
Oh yeah, Monday she had a schedule. I can't remember what it was, but Sunday was the Sabbath, and boy, you didn't do anything on Sunday because that was Sunday. And Monday was wash day. And Tuesday was ironing day. And Wednesday was mending day. And Thursday was, I think Thursday was the baking day when Mother baked the bread in the cook stove. And Friday, I don't know what she did Friday. Saturday, if they had to do any shopping, Saturday was the day they did it.
Well, where did you go to do your shopping?
Well, we went to Delta Mills, a little country store, until about 1909 or 1910 when we came to the city, from Lansing. It was about 5 miles out there. See, the farm where the Bible school is there, my brother sold it, where the Bible school is out there, on Willow Street.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Well, that was part of the old farm. My brother sold that to the Bible school when he got through and retired. And he always said that he always wanted something that would keep either a golf course or a college or a school, so it would remain in the country. Next, my older brother lived across the street in the 24 acres, and of course that got away from us. So we don't own the property out there anymore near Huxtable. But the Bible school, before my brother passed away, my next older brother, about 5 years ago, we had the old farm dinner bell that we used to have over on the old farm. And he gave that to the Bible school. And they got it in storage. We're trying to build a monument and put a piece about it, where it came from, see. Now that's being discussed now. And
That would be nice.
the progress on the project has, well, it's not on the back burner, but it's being discussed. I think it's going to end up with Bobby paying the money. Because my brother left it to the Bible school. You always had to keep it. They couldn't get rid of it. They can't even give it to his son. They like it. I'd like it myself, but we're going to build a place out there so it'll be there as long as the Bible school's there. And that was the 40 acres where my mother, well, the Bible school's right there, right where my mother built our kids and all that. Then my other brother, 25 years ago, he went across and part of the old farm, he built a house over there. Beautiful home. He passed away over there about 5 years ago. He was 94 when he passed away. No, I was 92, 93. He was still doing his ground.
See, Bob, when you came into town to get groceries and supplies, did you have to go downtown to have that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Have to go all the way
there was some stores down in North Lansing.
Okay.
There was grocery stores and butcher shops, and the old mills. There was 2 mills, grist mills down in North Lansing. One was the Madison Mill, and one was Chris Bryce's.
Were those still in operation?
Well, the Madison Mill was at the east end of the dam up there.
Yeah.
I can remember in 1910 taking wheat down there with the wagons and the horses and taking the flour back to the country.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Bryce's mill was over on the corner of Turner and Grand River on the northwest corner.
Were those water powered still?
Oh yeah, they were all working. I remember Mr. Madison. He was a gray-headed man, a great big beard. He ran the mill at Madison's Mill. That had been there for a long time. See, North Lansing was first before they went uptown. And of course, Florence, my wife, was born in North Lansing. Her father was a retail meat man down there for years.
Oh yeah.
When were you married?
1923, as I recall, 1920. I lived in the same house in Westmoreland for 53 years. I went to Westmoreland when there was just a few houses out there, 1923. That used to be where we went to the circus. I remember when that was the old Osborne farm. Chase Osborne was governor of the state of Michigan. He had a dairy farm. And then they subdivided. McPherson's and Howell subdivided. That was one of the first subdivisions in Lansing. Well, I was the oldest one there. When I sold out in 77. I understand the value of the property's doubled. But
Like everything else.
well, everything in Tucson's tripled.
Bob, but you're going on this Lansing to Dearborn run, aren't you?
I sent my money the other day. I have a driver.
Labor Day weekend.
This David Leonard, he's a relation. He's a nephew of George Vogel who bought my business. David's a fine chap. He's the manager of one of the financial businesses downtown. Graduated Kalamazoo College or something like that. He's a smart kid. He likes to go and he drives the cars.
That'll be nice.
I just built a flashing. See, last year, one of the lady come up over a little hill, and ran into one of the fellow ahead of me. And she was driving too fast. She caught up with him. And then she hit the double line. She had to stay back of him for about 4 or 5 miles. She was very irritated. So when she went by him, she was very, she had words to say that I would repeat. So he said he didn't like that. So in the 1 and 2 cylinder meet down in Lexington, Kentucky, a very good friend of mine down in Chicago, he had a flashing light on the road. So I built myself a flashing light, 6 volts, and put up on the back of my car, strap it up there, and that's going to flash all the time I'm on the road.
Oh, that's a good safety device.
Curved Dash fellow should have done it years ago. I built my own. It's not Miss Curl. I built those to show. In fact, I got special straps coming in from the saddle man to strap it on the car. Probably go with the car if I sell the cars. But anyway,
Are you speaking?
it's safety. But even on the back roads, you should be protected.
Oh, certainly. Especially at night. You don't drive at night, do you?
No, well, that much.
See, there's a lot of things on my little car that are not standard, not original.
Mm-hmm.
That pressure oiler, Frank Smith was one of the very fine engineer at an engineering company. He had 2 O's in England, Manchester. I was supposed to go ride with him on the Glidden tours. I never got to it. But you see, the drip oiler, which is original, which the big oiler like that, a drip it, and one drop every 6 counts. Well, you see, that don't make any difference whether your engine's just turning over, parked, or whether you're going down the road 20 miles an hour. You're still getting 6 drops. So I worked the bearings out on my car. And then about that time, Frank said, well, I'm going to make some pressure oil. So he sent me pressure oil. Well, the pressure oil works on a cam, and the faster the engine goes, the more oil you get there.
Right, the way it should be.
But if it's just turning over like this, you still get LCs. So you don't worry.
Yeah.
In fact, you got excess oil. You got to draw something off. But Frank sent 10 of those oilers to this country. I got one of the last ones. They're all down in Pennsylvania. Most of them, no, there's one in California. But boy, you get oil. You get oil.
Shall we stop for just a second?
Oh, let him talk for a while.
You want to keep?
Oh, Roger.
Do you know Roger?
No,
All right.
Sure.
no, I've known him for about 35 years, I guess.
Not that long, something like that.
Good.
But anyway, I think my car is a little better than somebody.
Sure.
I got a transmission that was built by a Cadillac, one-cylinder Cadillac man in Canada. He restored his Cadillac and he built a transmission for me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me how I got it here, but he delivered it in Detroit and I picked it up in Detroit and we didn't have any trouble. He built 2 transmissions. In fact, he built 3. We got a spare one. Very fine chap. Very fine chap.
Bob?
Roger, what are you doing?
I wanted him to look over here.
Oh, well, let me talk to you then. Don't be looking at the camera.
Bob, do you remember when the forge plant was built?
Oh yeah, Forge. It's on West Highway.
That's right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was that for, originally?
Well, I think it was drop forgings. We was paying a lot of racket out there.
Did it?
Of course, the Durant plant was just up beyond Westmoreland.
You remember when that was built?
Oh yeah, that was built in I think before World War I. Durant built that and started making cars.
1921.
21, was it, Roger?
That's what our dates show on our negatives.
21.
Maybe that'll help you remember something.
That was a beautiful plant up there that Durant built there. He built a Durant car then, and afterwards he built a Star car, that little Star car.
Yes.
I found one of those Star cars in Australia. And it's still in this fellow's garage, out on a ranch. He bought it new and imported it. The family did it. And he's a relative of Peter Olds. He's way up north, way up by Cairns. I tried to talk him out of it. Well, he was back in there, and he said, "Oh no," I said, "This is my dad's car. This is a little Star sedan, sitting there in his big rancher. Probably right there, sitting right there now." Well, you might talk him out, but it costs more to bring back than
Maybe it were.
but that's okay.
Did you see a lot of Durants and Stars in those days here in Lansing?
Oh yeah, there was. Of course, there was people that said that Durant was a promoter, and poor fellow died as an employee with Bullet Alley over in Flint, you know. Well, that's. 90% of life is luck, and the other 10% is being there when they pass out that 10%. He didn't. He went up and down, and when the last time he went down, he never went back, but went up. He was a brilliant man in his day. I never met him. They never named the park over here.
Yeah.
Park. He bought that and gave it to the city of Lansing. I don't think they've even got a recognized monument there for him.
Well, it says Durant Park.
I don't know.
But that's all.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if these cities are appreciate what's done for them. I don't think they do. Some of them do. I could say some other things. In fact, I would say this, that when they dedicated the REO's museum, as I recall it, one alderman showed up. The mayor wasn't there.
Who was the alderman?
I don't remember. I met him. That was back when they opened the museum. I better not say what well, it goes back to the fact that you can put you in jail for what you say and what you do, but you can't do anything to it for thinking about it. I've been paying fines over Lansing over some traffic, minor traffic things that I would say that the last time I'm in Lansing, I'm going to get a ticket, and I'm going to, if he send it to me in Tucson, I'll say he moved to Australia and his address is 45 King Street. Send him the bill. I'm kind of bitter about this traffic business also. Very bitter. I could draw you pictures of things that's happened to me in the traffic. It cost me $25. It's just silly. Silly. They used to have a parking lot down there by the old, next to the one on Allegan Street, and up there, a little bit of place up there. Put your money in, the one on the left-hand side. Nothing on the parking meters. But you got to look up there, so you got to look for it. I got a lot of stories to tell. Let's just say that I just don't agree with traffic regulations. For instance, when we had that General Motors meet down here 2 years ago, they were supposed to come down and put that hoods on the meters down there to the swap meet. We parked our car there and we got 2 tickets every day. My cars. Cost me a letter and send it back to the traffic department. I told them if they had known what was going on and what they promised us, why didn't they come down there? Why was it necessary for me to write back and tell them that I wasn't going to pay a ticket? I don't know.
Did you avoid paying the ticket?
Sometimes I wonder if they just organized the confusion.
But did you get out of paying that?
Well, I told them I refused to. I sent the tickets back. I said I refused to pay it. I never. Good thing I didn't, because I'd have blown my stack. I can tell you other things that happened in the city that I want.
Okay, Bob, do you remember the interurban?
Oh yes, used to ride there in Urban out to Waverly Park, and they run up over the Grand Trunk Railroad Trail, and the Urban went out to Pine Lake.
What was on at Waverly Park?
There was a dance floor and a roller rink, and there was 2 fellows in my class in high school. One was the Roscoe boys. One of them was Ernie, and they had a father, and he had a paddle wheel out to Waverly Park. He bought 2 paddles for $1, and when he sold all the paddles, he was up on a stand. He had a big wheel up there, and he would wheel. Every time he would run the wheel, somebody got a box of chocolates. When you stayed right there, you got a box of chocolates for your girlfriend, see. And he had 2 boys in high school. Roscoe, he ended up working for Oldsmobile after he went back to the 20s. He had a good job out in California. There was Ernie and Lester. Lester was the oldest one. Their dad, I can remember standing up there, and we'd buy 2 paddles. See? And when he sold all the numbers and all the paddles out, then he'd give it a whirl. And somebody got a box of chocolates like this. And I designed a wheel like that down in the wood shop in Tucson with the cooperation of a very fine friend of mine over in Canada who's made one of those wheels. And I was going to have it to take to the meets. And he was going to have paddles, and the cars' names would be on the paddles. And we started putting it in the parking lot. And you get prizes. You know, something for your car, something like that. But most of the money would go to maybe the treasury. I got that fellow all lined up. But that's one of those jobs that I'd better leave alone.
Do you have any patents to your name?
Patents?
Yes.
I have patents. Let's see.
What was the year of your first patent?
I patented the power tapper in it's probably run out now. It was built for me by a chap down in a little town outside of Boston who was a mechanic out of Maine. I had a patent. They've still got it in my file. Let's see, that patent ran out in 1917. The patent that date was, it was in the 60s. It'll rather be gone now. But anyway, a chap in Australia picked up the patent, changed it, and put it on the market. And it wasn't successful. I had the best one, but I never put it in production.
Do you have other patents?
Oh yeah, my patent.
All dealing with, any dealing with the automobile?
Patents? No, I don't think so. I can't believe it. I ended up as the largest distributor of maple syrup equipment and items in the States. In fact, my company out here is the largest one I sold out is the largest. In fact, Mr. George Fogel's president of the company down in Vermont. It's over 100 years old. I sold him my stock and everything. I sold up there. He's been very successful. He has plenty of help and nice place and well financed. That's all I'm supposed to do.
What would you have done different in your life, Bob?
Well, I'd like to round the second time and I want to get the chance.
Well, we all would that.
Yeah, there was a lot of things. I used to tell my brother about it. He said, well, it's too bad. No, when the war came on, I saw men who went into private industry and did things that was very successful because of the war back there. Win the war, regardless of cost. I observed a lot of things back there that I'd rather not talk about. I had 5 nephews in Europe, and they all came back satisfactory. And they all had some pretty close calls. I'd rather not talk about it. This war business. I went through the day the armistice was signed in 1918. I was put on the train over here to go in the army. And the train never pulled out. There was 37 of those fellows, draftees. And the man that was running the draft, he said, you fellows come with me, we're going to march back downtown. And let us off. 37 of us. The day of the armistice signed. I had orders in my pocket for appointment in the officers training school, Camp Fremont, California. And I've still got that little postcard that says you report for duty somewhere. That's it. But I had a brother in France in the First World War. He wasn't treated too good, but he came back all right. I had a roommate in France in the First World War. He talked more than me.
Oh, Bob,
I don't.
we appreciate the time you took to come down here today.
Unfortunately, it necessitates that I sell my car. I told these fellows in the letter, I wrote another fellow yesterday down in Illinois, a friend of mine. I said, I don't care whether you take it or not. I said, I'd rather leave it here this winter and He's still here next summer and somebody else will. But it's going to be a sad time.
Of course, you've had it so long, you feel very close to it. Did you ever name your cars? Do you name your cars?
No, I never, Bill and I never, that came up, but Bill and I never, I know we discussed it, but, well, see, there was another thing Bill came up with our two cars. We put these rear truss rods in. We make them, put them on ourselves, because the 1904, when you back up, the brakes lock. See, you just stop like that, see? So some fellow somewhere designed these truss rods. Bill had them made, and he put set on his car and set on mine. And boy, I'm telling you, it makes all the difference in the world. In fact, Bill gave me one that I was supposed to put in production, and I lost it. And Bill don't like me anymore. I don't blame him. That's one of the improvements I put on.
Yep.
Now, Bill's son's got a 5.
Yes.
And that brake drum back there, that's all one piece. Beautiful job. Put on the factory. I always wanted to build a dicky seat. Helen, you got me that black and white picture with the hose, with the seat on the back. I was always going to build that down in the park in the wood shop. I've got plans down there, but too much to do, so little time.
That's the way Jim and I feel here on this truck, too. Too much to do, too little time.
I'm making now. Am I on? Still on there?
Oh, sure.
I'm putting together now a soft drink dispenser. We're going to dispense orange juice, grape juice, maybe Coca-Cola and sarsaparilla through kegs. And we've got antique wine brass faucets. I had one out of New Zealand. My son-in-law's in France. She's picking up some, and we're going to pick up some of this country. You aren't going to have the wine in the kegs. You're going to be in tanks back there.
Oh, I see.
Covered up. This is a backyard dispenser.
Oh.
Right. I'll make one, see. Then I'll take it down to the rec room and then in the park down there. Put two in the corner and then some paper cups over there and put a box up there and donate for some charity, and because you haven't got one now.
Well, that would be nice, Bob.
So I have to keep it clean. I've designed it so that I can wash it myself. I'm going to run the tubes through the kegs.
Oh.
And the stainless steel tanks are back of the tube, back of the kegs. Good.
A rather clever idea.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun. Keeps me busy. Keeps me busy. Anyway, I'll have one.
Well, yes.
See, when I was in company now, I used to design my own equipment. I designed my own cream machine, my own sugar machine. I've got one down in Tucson. It goes back to the museum in Moline, New York. I'm a charter member of a museum, the Maple Syrup Museum of Moline, New York City.
I didn't realize there was a maple syrup museum.
I think it's Moline. Anyway, I'm supposed to ship it out there. I haven't got to it yet. That's the job. I took it down there. It was a surplus machine. I didn't sell it. I probably had 12, 15 machines out. I made it myself up. But whether someone still with you, simple thing.
Bob, it's just been great talking with you.
Well, thanks.
Jim and I wanted to do this for some time.
We do appreciate it.
You know what I'm going to do with that? I couldn't get it off this morning. I'll take that off.
Bob, do you have luncheon plans? Do you